on-site manager of our apartments, and
Okay.
of course there's 2 emergencies.
Oh.
One's just a light bulb, but the other one somebody broke their sink.
Let us know, because what we're here for is to watch watch the thing do
watch
its
it do
thing.
its-
You won't see it until it gets closer to sunset.
Yeah.
And it starts
Where
to come
it
through
lines
this.
right up with
And
the-
then it lines right up with that, and that's the cool part. But I think what maybe we should consider is
a little bit where the character played by Daniel Day-Lewis is Daniel Plainview, and he actually came here when the oil was rolling down when they first struck.
Wow.
You can see it in that scene in the movie, so it's a little reference pop culture for Signal Hill.
okay.
But then afterwards was when Signal Hill Petroleum formed, and they've been the primary developer, I think, for a lot of this stuff up here. Promenade that connects Discovery Well Park to Hilltop Park, and then this is part of that memory necklace stations that kind of go all over the hill.
Okay.
So there's a lot of cool history here
There's
that a lot of people don't know about. And I'm hoping Craig will be here soon, and he can give you guys some more
It's
background.
not quite 6 yet.
No.
It's a very special day to me because it's the 20th of March. It's the Vernal Equinox day. It also happens to be the first day in spring, so we've all got spring fever, haven't we?
Spring fever.
And but another very special thing is that it's the 25th celebration of the inauguration of this park here at Sunset View Park. So if you look at the plaque over there, 2001 it was inaugurated or dedicated. So it's very special. So I guess, how many of you have been here to see a sunset on either solstice or, yeah, everybody? Okay, we all have, so we know what we're up against. And anyway, we're very pleased to have Charlie, our Vice Mayor, here with us. Distinguished guest, good to be with you. And also, we're thrilled to have Jeremy Cicchetti. Did I say that correctly?
Close enough.
Yeah, close. Spaghetti, yeah. And representing his father John, who is infirmed, and also Craig Stone, one of the artists who worked on it. So they're here to answer a few questions. So Mark is going to, he's been often seen walking around the hill with a camera.
Right.
And it's the two of us that got
Right.
the idea of getting it together for this evening.
Right, we walk up the hill every day, and the Historical Society came along and gave us a tour of this area. And I've been walking up here all these years, and I didn't know what this area was. You know, it's kind of like artwork, right? But then they told us this is a solar calendar, and we went, wow, that's pretty incredible. You know, so we started learning about that, and we started learning about John was the part of the designer of the Hilltop Park up there. And so we decided we'd like to learn a little bit more. So we've invited you here. So maybe you could tell us a little bit.
So, John originally, as the landscape architect for the city of Signal Hill, had designed Hilltop Park. He's worked on a couple of different parks up here, the Panorama Promenade, Discovery Well Park, Hilltop Park. This park was actually by Urban Arena, so it was a separate public art thing, but there's a lot of nice public art within walking distance of here. It's all kind of together with the trails and everything, so you can kind of explore all of the different aspects. And then I'll hand it off to Craig because he actually was the artist for the Hilltop Park.
Yeah, John Cicchetti and Tom Weir, Tom Tom Weir was a planner, and John Cicchetti is landscape architect. And John and I collaborated on a bunch of projects over the years. And so, in 1968, there was a call for proposals to create an artwork over there on Hilltop Park, what is now Hilltop Park. And that was because of oil production, that area had not been developed. And so it really was because of oil production that it had not been developed. And so the city was looking to have a water area. Before there were the water towers, and that's imagery over there will show that. There's some imagery up here when you do your walks. You'll see the old water tower. And so I forget, it's something like 50 million or 500 million, or I forget how many gallons, but in the center of the park, there's a line you can see on the outside where the grass stops curving, stops waving. Well, that's the edge of the water tank. And so that creates the water pressure, right? So the city concept was that area would be there, and our concept is a site specific and a context specific approach to art making. And usually what you see in public art is you'll see a sculpture that might have been on a pedestal in a museum, or they might have a sculpture that they blow up to make really big outside. But it's essentially something that's not about the specific site. And our approach is, like I was saying, is context and site-specific production. And so when we look at the site here, it's this ancient promontory. So Loma Sentinel, right, was the Spanish term for Signal Hill. And so when
Cabrillo
came here, he called Long Beach the Bay of Smokes, signal fires. So the Tonga Gabrielino or Kitch or the indigenous people of Long Beach and Pimu, which we know as Santa Catalina Island, there were signal fires there, kind of announcing
Cabrillo
has arrived or something, right? So later, the missions came, the priests used, and they would do signal fires as well. So that's a really ancient promontory, and it's one of the few places in this area where you can see and look out. So when they take sculptures and they make huge sculptures and they blow them up big, if they put a few of them together, they call that the outdoor gallery, or they'll call, like the sculptures, there's sculptures up here. So these are discrete things that have been made, constructed, put up. What we did was kind of reverse that concept to say, what are we looking at over there? What is the historic significance of the site? What will be the future significance of the site? And what's wonderful about the site is that it's an ancient promontory, that people looked out, that you can look out, and that it changes constantly. So what we did was we put up walls that are made out of steel, and then they have a window cut in it, and it's cut at an angle, so you can't see the sides of the walls, you just see the image. And so it looks as if you're looking at a photograph of whatever it is you're looking through that. And so there's three different walls over there where you're looking. It just says looking to the east. The one that's the Native American has a long format, the type of format that you see actually in Asian, Chinese, Japanese scrolls. So everything has a reference. So here in Signal Hill, there were these Japanese farmers,
Yes.
right? And so they were, part of that connection into the 50s. Of course, they went away. People came back, Terminal Island. And so So there's all these references, like just the shape of that is based upon a Japanese scroll. Then on the other side, there's long shape. That's that long shape that you'd look through. That's associated with landscape. And then the other is a classic 5x8 Fibonacci, kind of classic Western European Greek tradition, Roman tradition. So it really is, there's all these little things in there. And so when you go up there, every time you look out, that the landscape changes, people change, you know, who are, like you might see people through those images. We're inspired really by Jack Mackey, who is an artist from Seattle. And Jack Mackey is an artist and a theorist, but he talked about that public art was the art of making places public, that it would stimulate interactions between people, that it would cause people who wouldn't normally talk to each other would talk to each other. Criteria: do people kiss there? Do they hold hands? Do they sleep? Might they dance? Right? So if you look at that site, you'll see that interaction. If you go over there, you'll see people interacting. And then there's this idea of looking into the future, or looking at this certain moment right now as you look out. And then on the back sides of those, there are panels, and those panels talk about the history of Signal Hill. So the oil history, why it's an independent island in the city of Long Beach, you know, and so all the imagery there is based on historical imagery, and so we're trying to make it as accurate as possible. Yeah, and then the shadows on the front side that you see, those are shadows of the agricultural, the agrarian past. Then there's also of the oil past, and then there's also the Native American past. So an example of like the accuracy of the imagery that we used, we found images of these folks with that big wrench, and they're kind of skinny guys. And when we went to city council, they would say, you know, that guy's supposed to be an oil worker, and they wanted to see somebody like Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know. So they try to make him bigger and bigger each time. And then we just come back with the same skinny guy with his wrench in. And then we would have changed it, moved it, done something different. You know. At the opening, there was this old man who came up who had worked the oil fields. And he said, wow, I want to talk to the artist. You know. And we said, yeah. And then he said, do you know what that guy's job description is? I said, no. He says he's a rigger. He goes, yeah, he's climbed up those derricks. They were rigging up there all day long. They might take a little bit of food, but they'd be up there all day long. They'd have water. That might be about it. And he said, man, that's really awesome. That's exactly. So I said, Mayor, Vice Mayor, come here. You got to meet this guy. So that's one of the things, you know, when you're engaged in art making in the public sphere, you're always negotiating, you're always dealing with different constituencies. And then you're just, for us, we're trying to be accurate as we could. There's two images of American Indians there. And it says, you know, images of American Indians from the 1890s. And, or it might say 1990s. Yeah, that's what it says. So people would say, no, this is 1890s. And say, well, no, you know, when
Cabrillo
got here, there was no photography. So we don't have a photographic record of Indigenous people here. But we have two people, Cindy Alvitri and Craig Torres, who are Tongva Gabrielino people, who made regalia. They were involved with the Tiot Society. And so those are actually shadows of those two individuals who are making their regalia in the way that it would have been, you know. So each of those has its own little history like that. And then there's a shadow that come off each of those walls. And then there's like a watercolor image of what you might see through that image. And that was stained with something that, it's a Japanese company created it, and then Frank Lloyd Wright had used it. And then we have a process that we've never licensed. So we get deep penetration. So if you go to Belmont Shore, there's shadows down there. And then up here, we're actually able to do this thing. And people will try to do it, and then it won't look good, within like 3 or 4 to 8 years or something. So these hold up really well because we did a lot of R&D on how could you get deep penetration and have things that last, Each of those kind of tells a story. And there's the Momatahiku, which is, Momat means the ocean. Ahiku is the breath of, so it's kind of the mist on the ocean that's animate. So that's what Momatahiku means. And that's the name of the plank canoe of the Tongva Gabrielino people. And so there's an image that you'll see over there, and it's an image of the Tiat, and then you'll see an image of a Tamol. And my blood relations, I'm not Chumash, but all of the Estradas who were the original Tomoyeros, they're my blood relatives. And so the Estradas, and so actually some of my cousins are in that image. Wow. And the other thing is John Cicchetti is a songwriter and poet. He's a multi-talented individual. And so Georgiana Beloy Sanchez, who was one of our professors at Cal State Long Beach in American Indian Studies, she and John got together and they wrote the text. And so as you walk in, you're going to read that text, and that text is talking about, these memories about the water below. So the title of the piece is Earth Upon Water, Hilltop Perspectives. So it's 5 feet of earth upon water. So that huge tank is below, and then you have that on top. And there's text on the back that talks about these histories. Originally, we wanted to have 4, on the cardinal points, and we didn't. There just wasn't enough money, so we ended. And then in the center, what you see is it looks like a rock, and out of that rock is a what do they call it, geyser type, right? So that concept is referencing the oil history, because here in Signal Hill or in Long Beach area, people would just talk about the geysers and this visual image. The other is at the top, we have a misting generator up there, and so it generates mist. And so this concept of Signal Hill, or of these white signal fires coming from here, the smoke, that's in the top of that. And then that references also the concept of the Momatahiku, of this animated breath of the ocean. So those are some of the ideas. I think one thing that's very unique about it is that reversing. So you're not looking at artwork, but what you're doing is you're looking at the landscape. And then that's carried out through the park design. So there are places to sit, there are places to view. And so really it's about celebrating that promontory and also that history, right, that allows that to be a public space. So that's like the back, that's kind of the stuff.
That's terrific. Have you written?
Huh?
Have you done a lot of writing about this? I mean, I'd love to
Not a whole lot.
read more.
I have, you know what? I taught for 44 years at Cal State Long Beach. Yeah, and I ran different programs in the School of Art, but for the last decade, all I did was run the American Indian Studies program. So I put all my energies this last decade into that, and it's great. We've got like 20 faculty, and it's very successful. So I'm happy to have done it, but I'd like to get back to making art.
When was Hilltop?
This was 2001. Something like that.
Oh, 98? Okay, so just a couple years before.
Yeah,
This one.
yeah.
Okay.
And it stimulated, and it's a real collaborator and good communicator, right? So I think if you look around, all this pathways after we did Hilltop, then John and Art Neri and yourself and people became engaged in creating, a lot of signage, right, that talked about the memories of being up here and yeah. Oh, and I will share with you that at solstice, it used to be, I don't know if this happens anymore, but both Ahashiman, Tongva, and Chumash people would gather here solstice, like early at daybreak, and there's songs for that, and then they observe that. I don't know about equinox. I know about, but important day around the world, equinox,
Do you know that?
No, there's like Momarehiko, like Momarehiko Taraharamino, Momarehiko Taraharamino. Yep. So I know a lot of songs. I've been singing for 56 years.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm 70, and I was on the powwow committee for 50, or I have been on the powwow committee for 50 years. We just had 6,000 people there last weekend. Yeah. So it's very successful. But like I said, I'd like to get back to making art. Yeah.
Yeah. So with your Indian heritage, you're uniquely qualified to
Well, I'm a
work on
mutt.
this. What?
I'm a mutt.
You're-
So
well, yeah.
yeah, and I really identify as that,
Okay.
So I don't, but I have all these relatives, and my family's been in California well, this used to be Mexico, and so my family's been in California when it was Mexico, and they just moved to different parts of Mexico. Then it became the United States. So yeah. But like I say, I'm a mutt. I have ancestry all over. I have an art studio in Sweden, southern Sweden, Scotland. Yeah. My daughter lives there. So, crazy.
So do you come up here once in a while and see it work?
Yeah. Mostly with family.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really a neat thing. City of Long Beach has done that, percent for art. So I did the project Belmont Shore, Shadows on the Shore in Belmont Shore, Krinsky Building on Pine Avenue and stuff like that. But really that kind of idea of the municipality supporting public space, I think, is really important.
That's why we
And-
got all the placemaking here and the trails that connect everything.
Yeah.
That all came from the development fund, right?
Well, some of those trails,
Initially it was the city of Long Beach, had a percent for art program,
Yeah.
and that was connected to redevelopment. Schwarzenegger got rid of that, and and so, but now the city of Long Beach continues to support placemaking, public art.
I think some of these trails were originally Audubon.
There were a
group
lot
used
of
to
folks who would
walk
come up there
through
back
here.
in the day.
Right.
Yeah, initially.
Yeah.
We'd meet with them and Sierra Club and
Mhm.
yeah. Were you guys affiliated with Sierra Club? No? Because there was a group that was always hiking up here. We'd meet with them. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And there is here a real strong tradition in terms of archaeoastronomy sites, here. So with Chinich spiritual philosophy, they do celebrations at solstice. So every solstice, that's really part of the indigenous spiritual philosophy associated with Chinich. So in the Pupogna area, yeah.
So this is all that. This is the marking of this. You know, that idea. It's amazing. It's given us tremendous insights.
Huh?
Given me a lot of insights into not only this but the other works.
Oh, thank you.
I did it for the 100th centenary of the city of Signal Hill.
Yeah.
I wrote a poem,
Oh.
which was 100 lines, 25 four-line verses.
Wow.
And I was interested in that to look back at the original inhabitants, about which very little of which was written.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, I'd be
I'd
pleased
love
to
to.
send it to you.
No, I wish you would.
Yeah.
I can give you my email address.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
We'll get that in a minute.
Okay.
Are we just about done here? The special occasions have been known to write a few words of poetry, and I thought today was a special occasion, so if you indulge me, I'll punish you with my works committed to Sunset View Park, if I can find it. So perched on the hill where the sea breeze climbs, there lies a quiet stage of stone and sky, Sunset View Park, a place that keeps a pocketful of secrets. Not loud secrets, mind you, not the clattering sort that demand applause, but the patient kind, the kind that wait for the earth to tilt just so. 4 evenings each year, the heavens line their pockets with gold. At the turning points of light, when the world pauses at the summer solstice and bows again at the winter solstice, and when the balance returns with the vernal equinox and the autumnal equinox, then the miracle happens. The sun, like a well-rehearsed performer, slides down the velvet of the sky and finds its narrow doorway, settling perfectly between the park's quiet sentinels of stone. For a breath of time, the horizon holds its balance, and those who happen to be watching feel the planet turn beneath their feet. Most people pass by, never knowing the trick of the light, never guessing that geometry and gravity are rehearsing their ancient dance here. But a few know. They gather softly with cameras, whispers, or simply wonder to watch the sun thread that golden needle through the markers. And behind this quiet choreography stands the imagination of John Cicchetti, an urban arena, whose hands shaped this hilltop compass of light. 25 years on, their lines in stone still speak to the sun, to the seasons, to anyone patient enough to look west. So the park keeps its secrets in the language of shadow and flame. And 4 times each year, the sky remembers the password. The sun steps through the gate, and the hill, for a moment, becomes a clock made of fire.
Perfect timing because the light's lining up.
It's just
There we
about
go.
there.
Oh, yeah, well, that started up. So now we got the example of
And so that's how it lights up.
that's how it lights up, and then it slowly moves.
To get to the
You'll
center.
watch it slowly move.
Yeah, just doing its thing.
You guys haven't seen it?
That, and I think when we did a little bit of planting around here in like 2004 or something, they added some benches,
Yeah.
something like that. Those were like 2 of the first projects I worked on.
That's pretty cool.
But you guys must have been part of the structural design of this part then, right? That
Cicchetti and
yeah.
especially
Tom and
Tom
John.
Tom Weir was involved. Tom passed on. The weird thing when you get older is like most of my collaborators have passed on. You know?
Yeah.
I gotta meet some
happen.
younger people. So, yeah, it's interesting. That there's maintenance that, you know, if you don't have a commitment to maintain these things. you
Right,
know.
right.
So but the city has done a pretty good job of doing that. That's often where it falls down, you know, when it comes to placemaking public art.
Yeah, Signal Hill is very committed to public art. Every time we do a new park or a building or such, we try to figure out how to build some public art into it. And, you know, we've been very fortunate when the Hilltop developed that we were able to reserve these areas for people to enjoy the view, which was a primary priority for the council at the time.
It was a success, I would say. You did a great job.
Yeah,
You did a great job.
well,
And
it's
all
a great
interconnected,
site,
too,
you
with
know.
the
Great
trails
site.
and
And
everything.
And you see what happens.
when we had the opening, you know, it would be like supervisor, mayor, all these different people got up and told their stories about when they were kids, how they would park up here and make out.
Yeah.
And this is like the supervisor and the mayor and all. So, I mean, this site is, you know,
Yeah,
if you have a great site,
it's a great time.
yeah, it's a wonderful historic place. You know?
360-degree views.
Yeah, it's,
Where do you
it's
get
so
that?
unique. Yeah, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many
These
people.
are actually two real people.
Right.
One is Craig Bartow, who was the basically owner of Signal Petroleum. And I don't remember the other person's name, but he was with Shell Oil, and the two of them worked closely together in the oil field here. And we actually had the artist come to City Hall, and they both sat while she created clay models of their faces so that they could be placed on those the Roughneck statues. Yeah.
It's been painted twice.
Yeah.
And the last restoration was really good. We used a new kind of paint. And I just went up and looked at it, and it's held up really well. I was,
Do you guys get
Kinda
into the
surprised.
restoration, or
we just restore our own
You-
things.
you do it?
Yeah,
No.
it's better. Professional restoration is really, really expensive. So we can actually do a better job for less than working with one of those folks. They're great, but it's like, serious? Yeah, pretty good. But that's really important. You know? Yeah.
Because that's just fascinating.
No, they brought out people who calculated all of
They
this.
figured out
Yeah,
when it would hit at the
and
right
this was
spot.
all surveyed in, and yeah.
At Pavona, there's these poles that are there, you know, the lower 22 acres on campus. And so at solstice, they just wait till solstice comes. You know what I mean? And then they would mark that. I don't know if it's still marked, but it was marked at one time.
It's amazing.
So, but then the next year it's the same place.
Well, it's just amazing to watch this move
for sure.
because we don't feel any movement, but it's moving.
Oh yeah,
The earth is
It's a real,
moving.
right.
it's a real Stonehenge feeling.
Yeah,
It really is.
I don't know. I like it. Absolutely. Anyway, thank you. That's very interesting. Yeah, I walk every morning.
the center.
Summer solstice?
Because it's sunset. Sunset and the center are.
And winter solstice is that one? But the house,
Yeah.
Because the sun's going out of
Yeah.
This doesn't really work in the winter. If you come out here in the winter, it's earlier before it goes down, then it's like that. Looking that way, the sun rises, that's exactly that.
How are you? I missed the